episode 13 of the Four Inside Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Obi. I have a great episode in store for you today. With me is Vismita and Vishak Varghese. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Obi?
Doing good, doing good. So let's get right into it. You're a certified personal trainer. Just talk about that first and what got you doing CPT.
So I've been hitting the gym ever since I was in middle school, and I thought I knew what I was doing. Like I thought you could just throw some weights in the air, and you just get swole and you'd be super healthy.
Right.
And fun fact, I was wrong. So after a while, I realized maybe I should get a CPT done and actually be more knowledgeable in what I was doing. And once I did, I started realizing the importance of nutrition, form, and like progressive overloading. And essentially, right after that, I realized that I didn't know what I was doing, and majority of the people actually don't know what they're doing either. So I'm really thankful that I got it, because now when I train my clients, I know exactly what I'm doing, because my biggest priority is safety. So I have clients who have sciatica and like spine injuries, and they feel like comfort when they're working out with me, and that makes me super happy. And that's only because I got my CPT done.
That's great. So what made you become a personal trainer? What made you want to train clients?
Just because I thought working out was really fun, and on top of that, I realized how I actually didn't know what I was doing, and I realized the majority of the people also had the same mindset that I did,
Mm.
and I wanted to like fix that.
And so, in being a personal trainer, you're also a dance choreographer. So talk about what got you into dancing as well.
So I actually got into dancing because of my brother Vishak. When he was younger, I would tag along to his dance classes, and I was like 3 years old. So when it came time for a performance, they said like I couldn't perform, and I was really upset. So I started screaming and hollering, and the judges were just like, like just let her join in the back, and I ended up stealing Vishak's spotlight, and that's how it all started. And then eventually, it led to doing halftime performances for like NBA teams, and then gigs at wedding and small little recitals with like Indian celebrities. So it's because of my brother.
So Rashad, then talk about that too. How did dance become an influence for you, and what got you into dancing as well?
So I got into dancing. I think when I was in elementary, a friend of mine, she was dancing, and she was like, "Hey, we're doing this like little Bollywood team. Do you want to join?" And I was like in elementary. I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that's basically how I got into it. So I got into it, and I danced for like maybe 4 to 6 years, and then my sister like joined. I think a couple months after I joined, and after that, I sort of didn't like dancing anymore, and I just had like other interests that I pursued. So I ended up leaving dance, but my sister proceeded to do dance since she was like 4 years old.
Now it's great to hear, you being able to pass it down on to your sister and her carrying it on. So Bollywood dancing, for those who don't know, explain a little bit what Bollywood is.
So Bollywood refers to the Hindi movie industry. There's a city in India, and the city is called Bombay. So Bollywood is a combination of the city Bombay and Hollywood. So with those two words, you basically get the word Bollywood.
Nice.
But the other thing is that in India, there's like close to 2,000 films that are produced in various languages every year. So it's more than just Hindi and English that's spoken in India. There's like 22 other languages, and Bollywood just refers to the Hindi movie industry.
Nice, nice. And so then what is Bollywood dancing like? I mean, is it high energy? Go into what goes into it. Is it more about fluidity? Talk about the movements.
Bollywood dancing, there's no real structure, right? It's basically like the hip hop of ballet, because there's no real rules like classical dance. So it's high energy. It can be sad, but it's always telling a story.
And just share detail about you guys' background. So like you said, you guys are Indian, and so talk about how culture influences you guys.
So we identify as Indian American, and in India, dance is a huge portion of our culture. So that's like festivals, that's weddings. Anytime music comes out, there's always like an accompanying dance piece to it. So like in India, most artists don't really drop albums. a lot of the music comes out through movies. So a new movie will come out and they'll have music made specifically for that movie. Like I think the first Bollywood movie might have had like 7 songs in it, and then the most songs a Bollywood movie has ever had is like 69 songs or something.
Yeah.
So music and dance are just like a huge part of our culture, and we grew up through that.
Nice. Yeah, I could relate because I'm Nigerian American, and
Mm-hmm.
celebration, dancing, all of those things are a big part of our culture as well. Having weddings, having gatherings, music, and all those things, and we have things called masquerades, right? And they're a big part of the culture as well as dancing, tribal dancing. So definitely I can rate it, and it's good to be able to learn about different cultures. I mean, I can read as much about it as I want to, but it's better to get the real life examples.
So, do you know how to do any dances from your culture?
I mean, not really, not the tribal ones, only because throughout the culture, it's mainly women who do them, like women groups. Um, there are certain things that men do. Those ones I kind of know how to, but not a whole lot. I should learn though. But no, definitely. As I got older though, it it was important to me to learn more about the culture and to embrace it. I mean, I always identified with it. It was never anything I really was afraid of. But I think with me growing up in America, I grew up in American culture, and I learned about Nigerian culture as I got older instead of kind of having them both ingrained. It's better now, and like I'm embracing it even more than I did when I was younger. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely, there's always still something to learn. There's still something to move on.
Right.
Mm.
Mm. I think as Indian Americans, it's like Indian culture's always been there. Like just like the weddings we go to, like it's always just been a part of it. And I think the cool part of it is like you can go into it as much as you want to. Like you can be the kind of person that goes to like every single festival, or you can be the kind of person that just like attends but don't really, like, that doesn't really participate in the festival itself.
Yeah, it's the same thing in America, in Nigerian American culture. Like, here in Houston, I can speak on when we have weddings or when we have like birthday parties and all of that. We
Mm-hmm.
know it as tradition as kids. It's gonna be late. It's gonna be at 12 in the nighttime, and
Mhm.
you're gonna stay up till 4. And when you're a kid, you're just kind of there on your phone. The adults are mainly the ones celebrating. As you get older, you start to really embrace the custom, and then you become the young kid or the young adult who starts to get involved, who starts to lead things. And I think it's just part of ingraining and learning the culture as you get older. You start to embrace it more
Mhm.
with Nigerian customs. Now, there are people who, grow up in Nigeria and they move to America. They generally have the culture embedded in them, and then they try to bestow it more on American culture. And I just think understanding where you came from is important for me,
Mm-hmm.
especially as I grew up and as I became an adult, because you don't want to lose a big part of your foundation.
Most definitely.
Especially when it comes to your parents, like your interaction with your parents, it's like they ingrained it as detailed and as deeply as they can, and that's how it generally is. And you don't understand it until you understand them, and then you understand how their upbringing was, and then you're like, okay, I get where my parents are coming from when they say certain things, when they do certain things. It was the way they grew up, and once you understand that, I think it helps you kind of embrace your life and your background even more. So we talk about the creation. So now, with you being a dance choreographer, with you being a personal trainer, you created the Bollywood Dance Studio. So talk about what went into that.
So for our Bollywood dance studio, I think if I go back, like ever since I was like maybe 13ish, I've done a couple of businesses. Like some of them went well, some of them didn't go too well.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that I really liked entrepreneurship, and like that was my thing. And so after my sister graduated high school, she didn't really know what she wanted to do. I know she told me like she didn't want to do like a boring job. So I pitched her the idea, right? Like it's like, how about we start our own little dance studio?
Absolutely.
And then like I remember like when she was in middle school, she said that she wanted to do her own dance studio. And I think the other thing with the business is we wanted to start lean, and we wanted to slowly iterate on the idea. Like you don't want to go big immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to just buy a place immediately and then try to succeed. Um, there's a book called Lean Startup that basically talks about how to iterate on an idea slowly. So that book just heavily influenced us as to how we would iterate. So first we started off with pop-up classes. We did pop-up classes in like parking lots, um, and we basically used that to figure out our target audience and where we'd want our physical location to be. So at that time, we were trying to figure out if we wanted to be in Missouri City or Stafford or Sugar Land. We ended up picking Missouri City. But also we wanted to use those classes as a way to improve and figure out like the structure of our classes and how they should be. It was around that time we were trying to figure out like what our focus is as a brand. So if you look at like typical like large gyms or boutique studios, the way they do it is, they'll have like a team of salesmen, and they'll basically pressure you to sign like a yearly contract, and they sell you on that. They sell you on that initial hype. Like, that's something I've noticed every time I go to a big gym. They're just like, come on, sign up, do this. And the economics of it works because, big gyms bank on the fact that most of their clients will show up initially. And then, as the year goes on, like, they start showing up less and less. Like, December to like February are just hot months for gyms.
Yeah.
Because you sell memberships, and then after a while, a lot of the customers just start losing motivation and just slowly start not attending.
But you still have the units involved. I mean, that's like you said. I noticed that with just going to commercial gyms. It was like the dude, but I already knew when I signed up with the gym I go to, I already knew I was going to go to the gym. There was nothing to sell me on. And the guy still expended so much energy. I'm like, come on, man, sell. I'm like, bro, relax. You're trying to get the sale. I'm here to sign up. You don't have to sell me on anything. But it's like you're saying, commercial gyms largely bank on the units, not necessarily wanting people to be in shape. And, they bank on the New Year's resolutioners, the people who are trying to get in shape for spring break, like you said. And those people may use that membership largely for 2 weeks, a month, and then, they just kind of abandon it. And that gym is still making money. So talk about what it was like developing a clientele. You guys did something I think is very smart in starting small and allowing your business to grow. Talk about why you chose that method. I mean, you guys kind of already went into it, but a lot of people, when they grow a business, they're like, I want to start as big as I possibly can. And they end up not having the success that they want. And then they think, oh, it's something that I did, or it's the clientele. So what went into you guys' strategy of starting small, and how did you guys work on building clientele?
So the reason we really went small is it's a small commitment, right? You do pop-up classes, it's a very small commitment. If you jump up and you start, you have a physical retail space, that's a huge commitment. And I think we wanted to make sure that this is exactly what we wanted to do. We didn't want to sign up for like a 5 years of regret or 10 years of regret. We wanted to sort of figure out, like, is this what we want to do, and can we do it right? Like, if people are not showing up to these pop-up classes, we're clearly doing something wrong. And so, we would advertise on like Facebook groups, and, we just stuck flyers. And a lot of it was just word of mouth. Like, we put it on our Facebook walls, and then people would tell other people who were interested, and they would start attending our pop-up classes. So as our pop-up classes grew, at a certain point, we were like, maybe it is time to finally move into like a physical retail location. But also we use that time to figure out like exactly what kind of classes we want to offer. So we ended up splitting it into 3 types of classes. One is we do Bollywood cardio, which is the equivalent of like Zumba. And then we do yoga therapy. One thing we noticed about just yoga classes all around is that there's a group of people who aren't interested in, like doing back bends or doing handstands. And what they're really looking for is just like functional yoga, right? They're looking for yoga that'll help them make their daily lives easier.
Yeah.
And so we decided on doing yoga therapy, where the ultimate focus is like easing your pain and just working around any issues you have. And then the last thing we did was teach dance to kids. Like, that's what we grew up with. We learned dance as kids, and we just wanted to pass that on.
So then with the yoga, how important was it to you guys, mental health and the mental side of yoga? Because I know a lot of people who they do yoga because maybe they're stressed out, and that's what they use to alleviate their stress, right? So talk about that, and then also the kids you guys mentioned. It's important. You guys grew up on it, so just sharing it, and then Bollywood dance. You guys use it as sort of a Zumba. So just talk about how you guys feel it helps people's lifestyles or mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like whenever you go to a gym, all they do is just focus on the physical aspect and the dollar bill. But versus in our classes, like we heavily we have to focus on like the mental health aspect because we understand like you're not just coming in just for a workout. Like you need a whole like de-stress. You just need to de-stress yourself. So especially in yoga therapy, a lot of people come in with work stress, but also they're stressed out at the fact that they can't even do like simple movements, right? And like we said, like yoga is more of functional for us. So like a lot of it's just removing the mental tension that you have. And for Bollywood cardio, like Vishak said earlier, it is an Indian Zumba. So people come in with the fact that they feel like they can't dance or they can't move or like, I'm too this or I'm too that. Like there's an excuse that's in the way. But in reality, it's all mental. Like being tired, it's more of a mental thing. You're not tired. It's your mind that's tired. So for us, I would definitely say like it's the mental aspect that we focus on just because we want to make them feel comfortable enough to put themselves out there to overcome and become better. And for our kids, mentally, we focus on them being confident. When you're young, you kind of look at what other kids can do, like beauty, looks, shoes, all those kind of things. So just creating an environment that they feel comfortable and that they can feel like they can make friends. Because especially growing up with two different cultures is really hard. Yeah. So it's an area where they can express their culture, even if they aren't Indian. So it's more of an environment feeling accepted.
I think some of the kids feel like they're forced to like pick, either like the American side or the Indian side. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, just like pick what appeals to you, right? Like it's not about forcing yourself to like a certain part of a culture, but it's just like feel comfortable with the culture. So we because we grew up as kids in America, I think it's a lot easier for us to just relate with the kids.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That when you grow up in a multicultural setting, mm-hmm. Yeah, you do kind of suffer from a sort of identity, struggle because you don't know what sides to sort of embrace more. Like I said earlier, that I grew up in American culture, right? But I had these Nigerian customs that were trying to be bestowed on me. So naturally, it's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I'm taught it this way. And you kind of struggle with that as, your child, and then as you become a teenager, you experience it a lot with Nigerians because Nigerian culture versus American culture is almost complete opposites from the standpoint of discipline, the importance of education, and all those other things. The conservativeness from a standpoint of both with yourself, with your body, with just everything. They're really built on, education, school, you keep your head down on the ground, which are all good qualities to have. But then there's also the social aspect that I think is a little bit different and is instilled differently. And for Americanized Nigerians, it's a huge struggle for them to kind of have this culture clash, if you will, like you guys are mentioning. So you guys being able to allow children to come in and kind of express themselves naturally and not, develop their own organic sort of self-identity is great, and it's a great thing, and I think it'll help them. So what has it been like, you guys' partnership and just running the studio? I mean, what are some of the challenges or what are some of the rewards? I mean, outside of helping people, what is it like, the ins and outs? So for those who don't really know, what is it like for you guys?
I would definitely say it's the hardest thing we've ever done, especially when you're young. People do try to take advantage of you in the business aspect. And on top of that, there's a lot of sacrifices. So I started when I was in my late teenage years and I just turned 20. So it's sacrificing a lot of like going to parties, going to weddings. Like there's no such thing as late night partying. There's late nights sitting and doing work. And then on top of that, the toughest thing would be maintaining mental health because you're not just teaching people or training people, you're also having to run the business aspect. So you're trying to keep your parents happy, you're trying to keep your clients happy, you're trying to keep your employees happy, all while running like the marketing and financial aspect. So sometimes it's really hard to keep mental sanity because it's not just a 9 to 5 p.m., 5 days a week, it's literally a 24/7 job. But I would say it is extremely rewarding in the sense that we actually enjoy our career, because I feel like most people have a career and they don't really enjoy it, which is crazy because you're doing your job for a large portion of your life. You should be doing something you enjoy. So I think we're both really glad we're setting ourselves up for a career that we thoroughly enjoy.
No, that's great, and you're absolutely correct. I agree that running a business, there ins and outs, and people kind of only see the product; they don't see the work that goes into it, right? And mental sanity, mental clarity is a big part of life in general. Just being able to kind of be able to wake up and grind, and like you said, being an entrepreneur. I mean, like Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary, they have the saying, we work 80 hours a week, so we don't have to work 40 hours a week. It's a nonstop grind. You're constantly moving. You're constantly evolving. You're having to keep yourself on top of your game, because if not, you get left behind, or your business fails. It takes the slightest thing, and then all of a sudden, you're stuck behind. Now your business has to close, whatever the case may be. And I can only imagine the type of toll that goes into it. But I think also doing something that's rewarding to you and that you enjoy, I think helps people kind of fuel their fire. If you wake up every day and you're doing something that you hate, or you're doing something that, man, I really didn't want to do this. I felt like my parents told me to do it, or whatever. I felt like somebody else told me to do it. You're not gonna enjoy it, and that's how people feel unfulfilled, right, with their life. Yeah, you might have a good job that pays you a lot of money, but money is not everything. It's a factor, and it's important, no doubt. But I know there are millionaires who, claim that they're not happy, kind of they're not content in life. So, all those points are absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the reality is that there's no like one thing that makes you happy, right? Like it's accumulation of things.
Yeah. So go into more detail about people trying to take advantage of you, especially because you're young. Because like you said, the business side, the business life is cutthroat, and people are always trying to take advantage of people who they might perceive as, less than them, or they don't know as much. So what has it been like, and how do you go about facing those challenges, facing those people who might try to take advantage of you, or might try to scam you?
So a lot of it, they're like I said, there's not much females or minorities there. So a lot of the people on the business aspects are elderly men. So even when it comes to contracts and stuff like that, you got to read your contracts twice, hire a lawyer, just like simple stuff like that. They'll try to take advantage, especially financially, because they think that, you're young and like, you don't know. So like, I think my brother has been a huge help on that, with helping in that aspect.
It's great, yeah, and it's important to have people there that can kind of, have your back and be by your side, and be able to kind of caution you. It's nothing wrong with having a mentor, having behind you who can help you with those things. Seeking help is, to me, undervalued, because I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I have too much pride to want some help. Like, that doesn't make you weak, that makes you smart. Because if you tried and fail and all it took was you asking for help, then what? I mean, does that make you a better person because you didn't ask for anything?
I think that's one thing we do all the time is like ask for help.
Yeah.
It's I think people are more than happy to share their knowledge. So there's no one's the worst thing that could happen is they'll reject you, but that's fine. But for us, just asking for help or asking someone how they do things, like it just saves a lot of time, and it helps also build relationships, right? Now we're friends. Now we're helping out each other. So I think there's nothing wrong in asking for help.
Who are the type of people that you guys go to for help? Is it parents? Is it family, friends? Is it other business owners? Who do you guys normally seek advice from?
So it would be other business owners, because once you become a business owner, you become friends with all the business owners, because you're all in the same boat. You know what the struggle is. So I guess turning to each other that, and for me, like I turn to my brother a lot. Anytime things go wrong, I'm the first person I'm like, Vishak, help.
Yeah, I think for us, it's just talking to people who've had that, who've had the experience of doing it before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's like the easiest thing. So a lot of the business questions that we have, we just ask people. Like we have family friends who own like franchisees. Like an uncle of mine, he owns like 2 subways.
Yeah.
So and he's owned it for quite some time. So we've always asked him questions about how does this work, how does that work, and he's been more than happy to help us out.
Oh, that's great. That's great. The value of mentorship and just having a curious mind. So, what would you guys say in running a business is, I guess, the most important lesson that you guys have learned? from when you guys started till now, what are the most important things as far as just owning a business?
Um, I would have to say you have to be willing to embarrass yourself. Nobody becomes a CEO just by starting a company, but by putting yourself out there and messing up 100 times. Because no matter how prepared or over prepared you go in, there's like 1,000 things that'll unexpectedly go wrong. So there's no such thing as like looking lame or it's either like you're doing great or you're slowly moving up. And you're moving up by starting at the bottom. And like even Elon Musk said that if things are not failing, you're not innovating enough. So I would just say don't let yourself stop you.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think we're okay with failure. All failure does is tells us like this doesn't work, but then we're continuously trying out new things. Like when COVID-19 happened, we realized that hey, in studio classes are a no go. Like it's not safe, and nobody wants to really come in the studio and do classes. And at that point, we're failing. So you have to figure out what do we do next. And so what we did is we switched our classes to online classes. So we started doing online Zoom classes.
yeah,
And then we started failing again because we realized that group online classes don't work well because the sound doesn't sync up to all these people in the Zoom chat. So we switched to doing like private one-on-one classes. So I think we're constantly failing if you look at it, but we're just making like minute adjustments and trying to improve ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. One of the biggest lessons I was ever taught was from one of my old coaches, and his big principle that he instilled in us was you cannot be afraid to fail. You can't go about life with fear of failure, right? And I still live by that today. That you have to be willing to try things. If you don't, then you'll feel worse about yourself knowing that you didn't try and you thought you could have, or just always having to live with that thought in the back of your mind, like I could have did this if I really put my mind to it. Trying and failing. I don't even like using the word fail because it's just trying and it didn't work, or you have to adjust, you have to evolve, you have to adapt. That's the way I look at things. Like failures is just it's just adversity. Okay, you can decide, I didn't like this or this didn't work. You know what? I'm gonna give up. No. Okay, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? Okay, on to the next thing. You can improve and improve and improve. The more you fail, the better you'll be in the long run. So long as you choose to have the right mindset about it, which is that okay, I'm just gonna constantly adapt and improve on my mistakes, or improve on any type of setbacks, instead of just being like, that's the difference between I think successful businesses and non-successful businesses.
Right. And then it's like you said about the not having regret part too. Like we've talked about that before where, it's like it's COVID now and then, business isn't exactly booming. And, we've talked about it and we said like, would we regret not ever trying this out? And the answer is yes. Had we not ever done this, we'd still regret it. Yes, times aren't good now, but I think that's fine. At least we got to have a go at it. And then it's not something that we question, years down the line if we didn't do it.
Yeah.
I think we've definitely learned a lot from this situation because I don't think anyone has ever expected, a pandemic to come and not being able to run their business anymore. So I feel like because we've been able to experience the worst, we're like less afraid of what's going to happen next.
Yeah, no, I mean, COVID definitely was a huge monkey wrench to a lot of people because all of humanity, at least at this point in time, nobody's experienced the pandemic. Nobody knows, how this was going to end up, how this was going to turn out. It just kind of happened, to a lot of people. And I think this, like you said, this by far is the worst thing that can happen to a lot of people. And, it's kind of now you'll see really who's the strong and who's going to survive, who really has the resilience to be able to overcome this adversity. Because I feel like if you can overcome this, and if your business can survive through this, that's just about perseverance and want more than any type of product. You know what I'm saying? Businesses that may have been more established might already have enough credibility where they'll be viable, they won't have to worry about anything. But for you guys who are up and coming and you're still evolving, the fact that you guys are still pounding the pavement is admirable. And I think that will help you guys, down the line, whenever you guys grow, whenever you guys happen to, improve your clientele, your clientele re-emerges, you'll be able to, look back at this and say, we could have gone through this and we can get through anything.
I think the other accidental advantage we have is that we're small. Like we're not a large chain. We're very small, so we can we're very agile. Anything that needs to be done can be done and implemented within a couple of days. Whereas, like large gym chains, like it takes a while, right? It takes a while to go to corporate. Their lawyers have to look at it, and then they decide on it, and then they push out this policy. So for us, it's just like anything and everything can be done, quickly iterate on it and see if it works.
It's been a great episode, you guys. Closing out, entrepreneurship, personal training, all the things that you guys have learned and gone through with just owning your business. What would your guys' advice be to the next generation of young entrepreneurs or people who are trying to get into business or people who are not sure whether they are ready to do it but they're thinking about it? What would you say to them?
For me would be don't compare yourself, because it's like being in a swimming competition. Looking how fast someone else is swimming, it's not going to make you go any faster. So focus on your lane and be willing to embarrass yourself, because the worst thing would be not doing something that makes you happy because you're worried about what other people think, or you're worried about messing up. You have to mess up to become something.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would be two things. One is ask for help. There's no shame in asking anyone for help. And in fact, like, if you can email us at like hello@ballycurves.com if you have any questions about starting a physical or retail business, and I'd be more than happy to help you with, what I know. And if I don't know, I'll be happy to like point you to someone else that would know that. But I think the other thing is that if you're starting a business, try to figure out why you're actually trying to start a business. Is it like, if you're trying to run away from, if your whole notion is that you don't want to respond to a boss, that's why you want to start a business, which I've heard before. I feel like that's a bad idea, because for us, like our boss is like our customers. So I think it mainly sums out to figure out, why you want to start a business.
Yeah. No, that's great that you said that. I've never heard anybody say it that way, but it is absolutely true that one thing I was told by my mom, which is that you're always going to have to work for somebody. You're going to have to answer to somebody, right? Now, when you own your own business, the people who have influence over you may be less. You minimize now the amount of people that can influence what you can and cannot say, what you can and cannot do, right? You have the full autonomy, but you still have a clientele that you have to, answer to. And just being able to be adaptable, I would say that's the main thing, and just always be willing to learn, be willing to, soak in knowledge. The more knowledge you learn, the richer you are. Knowledge is power. Right? All right, that's great. Well, that's a wrap. Episode 13, Four Inside Podcast. I want to thank my guests for joining me today. You guys, it's been a great episode. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much, Michael.
All right, you guys can communicate with them at hello@bollywoodcurves.com. All right, catch us on YouTube, Spotify, all platforms from the podcast. Thank you.